And I asked them, who guaranteed the man they're going to guarantee me? How long will a fool hate knowledge? Never equate knowledge with intelligence. Let us get excited about our lives. The only thing that keeps me moving with my people, knowing that God is a just God. I got a mission. I want to make a contribution to this world. Spend more time helping people than I do running the business, but God will keep his word.
You have just heard the words of Dr. Joe L. Dudley Sr., the co-founder of the Dudley Products Company and world-renowned entrepreneur and humanitarian. My name is Jimmy Davies, founder of Every Dot Black, and it's my honor and privilege to welcome you to the Dr. Joe L. Dudley Sr. Legacy Project podcast. As a child, he was labeled mentally retarded and suffered from a speech impediment, but his mother never stopped believing in him and was responsible for him overcoming these obstacles. In 1957, he invested $10 in a Fuller Products sales kit and created a company bringing in over $35 million annually. Along the way, he has mentored thousands, including myself, about entrepreneurship and has trained over 30,000 cosmetologists. Dr. Dudley's life story is a shining example of how to walk by faith and make your dreams come true. And that is why we have created the Dr. Joe L. Dudley Sr. Legacy Project to document and preserve his life of service and entrepreneurship. Please support this effort by subscribing to his podcast at www.joeldudleysr.com, where you can see his awards, photographs, and hear the speeches, and also the interviews of those who have been a part of the Dudley family throughout the years. Thank you in advance for your contribution.
I'm Dr. Beverly Allen, and today we're going to be interviewing Mr. Stan Anderson. Hi, Stan.
Hi, Dr. Beverly. How are you?
I'm great, and I hope you are too.
That's fine.
Well, let's begin with you giving us a little background on your little personal information, and then you can just go into how you came to be associated with Mr. Dudley and the Dudley Company.
Okay. Well, I'm Stan Anderson, and I founded the Motivation Readers Mastermind Network, where daily, Tuesday through Saturday, we have a motivational and inspirational reading call from the best motivational and inspirational books that have been around and stood the test of time. And we have a segment where we read live as an audio book type. I read live, or another one of the masterminds reads live to the callers. And then for the next few moments, we talk about what we read and how we can implement it to reach our goals in life. That concept actually comes out of a Dudley and Fuller concept, where Mr. Fuller and Mr. Dudley opened their corporate offices up to individuals that could come in the morning time to the corporate offices and read for success. They insisted that we be good readers and that we read good inspirational, motivational material. And so that kind of segues me into how I met Mr. Dudley. Was back in 1972, actually. I had some previous experience with Fuller Products when I was like 16 years old. A gentleman who was a Fuller product salesman became a Dudley person when Dudley took over Fuller. Al Gaddy introduced me to the company when I was very young, and I had an opportunity to meet some of the higher ups at that time. Mr. Dudley was a Fuller product salesman at that time, but I never got a chance to meet him at that time. I was 16 years old. Fast forward, I'm married now, have had me some issues with a little seduction that I had, a period of time that I was seduced by the street life. But I went through that phase and was in college at the time. I was attending Columbia University. And the same gentleman, Al Gaddy, who knew my family for years, said, Stan, you know a little bit about selling. You need to come on back and meet Mr. Dudley. And he talked so much about Mr. Dudley. And I came on out to one of the meetings. This was about 1972. And I met Mr. Dudley. And it was the first time I'd seen a Black man who represented a successful person who wasn't from the street life, that was successful. And he took an interest in me and everyone. And that's how I got to meet him in the Dudley Products Company. I joined and became a Dudley salesperson as a door-to-door salesperson at that time.
Let's see if we can back up just a little bit and find out a little bit about your early beginnings, maybe your childhood, where you grew up.
Okay, well, yes. Okay, I was born in 1954. I'm 66 now. I was born in 1954. I was born to a single mother, Martha Anderson, and she's actually one of the core staunch members of the network that we created, Motivation Readers Mastermind Network. And she's like our spiritual advisor. But this woman gave birth to me in Columbia, South Carolina. That's where I was born in 1954. And shortly after that, where I lived in an area called Wheeler Hill. Shortly after that, I know nothing about that experience. I was so little, at about 2 years old, just under 2 years old, she moved to New York City. And I've been here in New York ever since before I was 2 years old, roughly around 2 years old. Grew up in Brooklyn and met my beautiful wife there. We went to high school together. We've been married 44 years now. Same
Wow.
woman who stood by me the whole time I was going through my challenges, my trouble, all of that. This beautiful young lady stood by me. We have one daughter, Karimo, and 2 grandchildren who live in Beaufort, Georgia. So I am a grandfather, and my granddaughter is 14 years old, or 13 going on 14 years old. My grandson is 11, and they refer to me as GPA. And
Yeah.
my daughter Karima is a registered charge nurse in labor and delivery. So I did have some early challenges, grew up. My mother made sure I got a good church background in me. So it wasn't that I didn't have some upbringing, but I was an only child, didn't have a father in the home, and I looked up to some people in the streets who really, really had it going on with the bling, but they were not living life the right way. And I was seduced for a while by that type of thing. But thank God, it says, train up a child in the way that you would have him to go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. It never said that during that some period of time that they might not depart from it. But when they were old, if they're blessed to come back to their senses, they will not depart from it. I'm so grateful for my mother and the early experiences that I had, being a young kid in Columbia, South Carolina, coming to New York, raised in the streets of New York and the whole nine in Brooklyn. So I hope that kind of covers it a little bit.
Then, Stan, do you have some stories that you would like to share with us relative to your experiences with the Dudley Company?
Yeah, I mean, it actually been so many. I try to keep them in, so that had so many personal ones. When Mr. Dudley would come to our New York offices at that time, he was branched, still in Chicago at that time when I joined the company. Eventually came back to North Carolina, where Dudley itself actually all started. He would stay with me in my home. My wife and I had just purchased our home in 1982. And he would stay with me rather than stay in hotels and stuff like that. And he was always frugal about how he spent his money. But when he had an opportunity to pour into someone, and I was like the newest, youngest guy in the operation at that time in the New York office, because I may not have mentioned that. I'm in New York. And in Brooklyn, New York is where we started. I live in Queens. Because I was there, he took a real personal interest in me, and I looked like I was coming to do something. I was in college and wanted to really do something, and had some prior fuller experience when I was a kid. He really poured a lot into me, and he would deliberately stay with me and my wife at our home. And one of the things he used to say, because we had a small room, and he stayed in that small room where we had a little bed. He would say in the sales meeting, he said, I like staying with Stan. He said, I got getting a chance to stay with Stan. I'll be in that little old bed he got, but I just love being there, with him, in that small room in this little bed. But he used to come by and really, really just pour a lot into me and talk about just his life and how to be successful. He was always so open. Now, I don't know, I got a million stories, but that's one.
Tell us a couple more.
One of the stories I remember, we were in a sales meeting one time, and one of our really staunch business persons who was really, really just a dynamic woman, Joni Hayes, I believe it was, that was in the Chicago office at that time. We still had the ties to the Fuller organization in the Chicago office. And I believe she wanted to leave Chicago because the place where they were staying was a big house that the Dudley operation owned. When salespeople would come to Chicago there at the time and everything, the Fuller operation, everything was there. We all stayed at this place called the Big House. And she saw a mouse in the Big House one day. And you know how women feel about those things. And boy, she was ready to pack up, leave. I mean, literally pack up, go back to North Carolina, everything, because she saw this mouse. And Mr. Dudley held a sales meeting on that experience about her the next day in the business office. He said, Joni would let a mouse stop her from her opportunity. A mouse. And he laughed, and she had to laugh about it too. And that changed everybody's attitude, about little small things that we can sometimes, and literally a little small thing, right? How we can let small things stop us from doing some of the things that are really important in life.
Okay. Well, Stan, can you give us any insight on the business culture of the Dudley organization?
Well, yeah, definitely. Mr. Dudley did something that nobody else did in the beauty industry. He was definitely an innovator, just like Mr. Fuller before him was an innovator. Everybody told Dudley when we decided to move from a door-to-door operation, when he made the decision that he was going to start servicing the Black cosmetologists, Latin cosmetologists, and barbers, because they're the largest group of independent business people in our community. And Mr. Dudley was the first one I ever heard say that. And we were right among each other, but I never paid attention to that. If you look in our communities, you can readily see which ethnic groups own businesses or control that industry in our community. When you look at our community, in the Black community, what do we own? We own beauty salons and barbershops in numbers. And it's that way all over the country. And Mr. Dudley was the only manufacturer out there of a cosmetic product that believed that he could capture that market and become a successful company by not making his products available to the large distributors. He knew that in doing that, it would put a person like me and the other salespeople that he had nurtured and grown over the years out of business, because the moment he took his products and put it into the major distributing companies, which were not owned by people that look like us, we would no longer have control of that product. But not only that, our clients, our customers, the Black and Hispanic cosmetologists and barbers, would no longer have control of a product that they could call their own anymore either, because those distributors would make that product available to the mass market. And although the sales of Dudley products would have gone from a few million to many millions overnight by doing that, he refused to do it because of that reason. And he still built a company that got up to $30–40 million a year, never going through existing distribution networks. He said, we're going to make our own product, sell it by our own people, to our own people. And everybody told him that we would not be able to do that. But he made us know that this was something as salespeople and as people in our company that we not only can do, but that we must do. And we all bought into that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Stan, have you had any leadership positions or anything in the company other than the sales, door-to-door sales?
When the operation, so I was with Dudley Products when it was a door-to-door operation completely, totally. And when it branched into becoming a professional product distributor and manufacturer, which is where it really got known big, when Dudley Products, Dudley Beauty Products, when we really went into that cosmetology and barber industry. For a period of time, I actually had a position of training some of our salespeople around the country. And I actually trained salespeople in Chicago, in Indiana, and even in Atlanta, and in Philadelphia, and in Kentucky at that time. So I got an opportunity to actually get a chance to go around the country and do some further training and assisting of our sales force at a managerial level or sales training level. I did that during the time, from the time when we branched into the professional division.
Okay. Well, Stan, let me ask you, is there anything that you find kind of pressing that you really want us to know that you've missed?
I'll just speak a little bit more on my life. I mentioned it just briefly about
Please.
how I got seduced for a period of time into the street life. And, you know, that caused a little issue for me with the law for a period of time, very brief period of time. But it's when that episode was ending, but could have continued, that I met Mr. Dudley. And honestly speaking, it was meeting this man and the interest that he took in me and everyone. And here's a successful, self-made, so to speak, multimillionaire. Him and Mrs. Dudley built that organization and did that. But he took a personal interest in me, and I wasn't the only one. But he took a personal interest in me, introduced me to S.B. Fuller, had me having conversations on the phone with S.B. Fuller. Because of Mr. Joel Dudley, S.B. Fuller invited me to his home, and I spent the weekend at S.B. Fuller's home when he was still alive in Robbins, Illinois, and his beautiful home there. If I hadn't met that man, it's no telling where I would be. But by the grace of God go I. You've heard that expression sometimes before?
Yes.
I
Yes.
look at some of the ones who ended up in prison, going back and back and back and living the street life. If I hadn't met a successful man who was on the right side of the law, that looked like me and took an interest in me, God knows, with all the good work that my mother put in, being a single mother and bringing me up in the church and everything, and the great wife that I had, it still is no telling where I might have gone if I hadn't had him as an example.
All right, that's some great information right there. Well, Stan, if you could just wrap all of those years together, what would you say your experience with the Dudleys and the Dudley organization has had on your life?
That's really quite easy for me to say. It has made me believe in my heart, to whom much has been given, much is required. The Dudleys, Mr. Dudley, Mrs. Dudley, S.B. Fuller, but especially Mr. Dudley, put so much into me and to others that we know we have a responsibility, I don't care what it is, to give back to our people. And I have decided that regardless of what it is I'm doing in life, it's going to always have that as the thread running through it, giving back to our people to build them also. I went on from that experience. I was an inspector with the Department of Homeland Security. For the last 11 years, I retired in November. I maintained a relationship with Dudley as a Dudley part-time distributor and everything. Started this Motivation Readers Mastermind Network because it was really in Dudley and the experience that he had with Fuller that I came to understand how important reading is. Readers are leaders. Reading people are ruling people. And he insisted, and Mr. Fuller insisted that we do that we read the type of materials that we read every day now on the Motivation Readers Mastermind Network that I created. All it was the Fuller and Dudley concept of having people come in and read to get their minds right and empowered and see people who've done things and what the thinking process that went into that whole success journey. I said, listen, the least I could do, since I've read all of these and read them over, I may not have all the examples of what some of these men and women did, but the least I could do is share what was shared with me and continue that experience, because you never know who's going to take it and where they're going to go with it. So that's That's what Dudley has put into me. And I think he's probably put that into just about everybody that spent any time with him. And I was with the company for 20 years straight, full time.
Okay, that is absolutely wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful words that you're
Well,
sharing here.
the example that Dr. Joe L. Dudley has set has been one that, regardless of adversity, regardless of what the adversities are that you go through, and I've gone through a lot of them, and still go through some, that there's always a seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. And that came from out of Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich and the Law of Success. But it became alive to me through Mr. Dudley. And that I think that all of us, and that's pressing on me, to regardless, he wrote this book, I Am, I Can, and I Will, Walking by Faith. I'm in that book. He actually mentions me. I believe it's in the section on page 45. I'm actually there. And I wrote a poem back during the time I was having my challenges legally and was out there, in the streets. And he was the one that told me, he said, Stan, you got to tell that poem. You got to say that poem. And I used to recite it at the Dudley organization and all around. I finally released it. It's actually released on iTunes now, and Spotify, on Apple Music. And I actually have written quite a number of them, and the full album will be out hopefully by the end of September. But if you think it's okay, would it be all right to recite that poem? Because that was what he...
Hey, absolutely. I was just about to ask.
Okay, because he actually was the one that encouraged me to say that poem. He said, man, why are you hiding that poem? We need to hear that poem in our sales meetings. And I used to do that all around the country. When I would travel all around the country with Dudley, I'd always deliver that poem. And I wrote this back in 1971. And it wasn't a good time for me in my life at that time. So I thought, but my mind was on a level that I didn't even realize until he was the one that explained it to me this day. He told me, he said, you got to read it. Times and places. Life is a series of times and places, of breathtaking advances and bitter retreats, of towering mountains, deep, dark valleys, victories, stalemates, and defeats. Life is a journey we all must make, even those who choose to stay home. Some set their goals, reach them and stop, but few continue to forge on. And don't we all have appointments that we should keep? Don't we miss some, make some, maybe oversleep? But life is the total of our hits and our misses, of our sure things, our long shots and our doubts. And we should step boldly to the plate, take our best swings, and defy the fear that we might strike out. Because the clocks will keep ticking, and the earth will keep turning, and the rivers will continue to flow. But our lives are just a series of times and places, and we all should choose some place to go. Don't you spend your time dreaming or reminiscing, because there are places to go that you'll surely be missing. Don't you cling to this earth because you're afraid to fly, but spread out your wings and give life a try. And should you start getting weary when the journey gets long, reach into your mind and compose you a song and sing it wholeheartedly as you journey on, or stop and rest. Just don't rest too long. Don't you quit your journey once you begin, but continue your quest to the very end, because you'll be getting closer. Yes, you soon will be near it, near that horizon of hope that will inspire your spirit. Ignore the expressions on envious or doubtful faces and think only on the days when there'll be smiles and embraces. And should you reach your destination and find that you're not pleased with it, just rejoice and thank God that you made the trip, because there's so many others who don't even try. Chances are the place they were born is the place they will die. And don't you ever think the journey you've made is a waste. Just try another time and another place, another time and another place. And that is what I was encouraged to recite by Mr. Joe L. Dudley.
Oh, very, very inspirational.
Well,
Love that point. And so happy that you shared that with us. And could you reiterate the information that you gave us about finding that poems and that you've published?
It's in about 20 of the online music stores, right? Apple Music is one. I believe it's on Amazon also. I haven't checked all the stores, but I know it's on Apple Music. I've checked it out there. It's on iTunes. It's on Spotify. So those are three of the bigger ones, and four of the bigger ones. You can definitely find it there. Stan Anderson, Times and Places. And there is another Stan Anderson. And he's a different individual. He's actually a Caucasian brother, but he has different works. So if you search by Stan Anderson, Times and Places, you can buy it. It's 99 cents. The album will be out at the end of September. It's going to have a lot of other nice poems. And they're two original jazz that was created with my voice and those poems to original jazz by Mark Reddick, the producer, and his studio Music Labs. So it's really something I think you'll like. Yeah. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to say that. I didn't think I was going to say that and plug me. This is about Dr. Joel Dudley, but thank you for that.
Yes, it is about you also.
Thank you.
It's also about you. Stan, you made an interesting statement about the fact that you have a mastermind group. Could you share more about that group with us?
Absolutely. First of all, I would not have known anything about a mastermind concept if it hadn't been for my experience with Dudley Products and Mr. Joel Dudley. He was the first one that ever introduced us to Think and Grow Rich. Well, Mr. Fuller actually did, but at that time, I wasn't really into the reading. I was younger. I was 16 years old. I heard stuff, but I wasn't really into it. But when I came into Dudley later on, and Dudley insisted that we read Think and Grow Rich, insisted. That's where I first heard about the mastermind principle through Dr. Napoleon Hill, through Think and Grow Rich. And then we had to read The Law of Success and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey, and Think Like a Winner by Dr. Walter Doyle Staples. And the list just goes on. And Mr. Dudley, actually, so many of these individuals that we read about and wrote books actually came and visited the Dudley organization. Mr. Dudley made it his business that anytime he met anyone, because he was so well known, you know, all the way to the White House, presidents, you know, he would, if he met somebody that he felt could inspire us in any kind of way, and they were always inspired by him, because, you know, Mr. Dudley is an Horatio Alger Award winner, right? He would bring those individuals, Les Brown, he'd bring those individuals to Dudley Products. So we got an opportunity to meet some of the greats. And in reading and learning how important reading really, really is through this great organization and through this great man, Dr. Dudley. When I decided I was working with the Department of Homeland Security, Transportation Security Administration. But I knew, I said, listen, this is what I'm doing. I said, but this is not, I'm earning a salary through the federal government. I said, but how can I give what I have been given to everyone? And that's one thing that Dudley put in you. Fuller and Dudley put that in you. And I don't care how you think about it. It's hard for you to get away from what they drilled into you about giving back. And I came out, I was still with the Department of Homeland Security. It was 2014. I said, I've got to get back with Dudley. I went out and started my cousin and I, who was also a Dudley product salesman, who happens to be my beautiful wife, Doris Anderson. She's one of the co-founders of the Motivation Readers Mastermind Network. Her cousin and I, Tony Guevara, some may have met Tony Guevara before, actually worked together in the business. He started the business, I helped him develop the business. And we were all over the country conducting corporate training for government entities and private industry. And when I left and went to the Department of Homeland Security, because our business after a while didn't do so well and everything, and I'm looking where I'm going to work, and I decided I wanted to do something different. Dudley always made you feel like you need to go out there and build something. Mr. Fuller made you feel like you need to go out there and build something. Here I am working at the Department of Homeland Security. Great opportunity, serving the country, the whole nine, beautiful, work with beautiful people, but I'm not really utilizing all this that's been put in me so much. I said, how can I still contribute? I said, well, I got to go back to Dudley and see what can I do to come back into Dudley. I was away from Dudley for 18 years. What can I do, come back to Dudley and still make a contribution in Dudley and to our people? Because when you make a contribution to Dudley, you're making a contribution to our people. So I decided I'm going to go and start doing some business part-time with Dudley as a distributor. And I'm going to go right back to the same people, the cosmetologists, our largest group of independent business people, cosmetologists and barbers in our community. And I want to give to them what's been given to me. I want to start a telephone call reading line. That's how it all started. I said, I'm going to speak to my customers that I'm seeing part-time because I was still working at the Department of Homeland Security. I'm going to part-time go out and start calling on customers in the beauty industry, barber industry, and I'm going to invite them to this call. I got a free conference call telephone number. Thank God for free conference call, right? And I said, what I'm going to do, because I need this more than them. We need to start each day out reading, and we need to read the right things. And our business people, the cosmetology and barber community needs to have these readings. They need to do this. They need to be compelled to do this like Mr. Dudley and Mr. Fuller compelled me in that organization that you must do this. So I said, I started this call line, and it started out with 3 people on the line in the morning, and we would call in, and I started out reading the first book I believe that we started reading was Think and Grow Rich. And it was only 2 or 3 people on the line in the mornings, but they were faithful. And I said, no matter what, one thing I learned from Dudley, that when you start something and you say this is what you're going to do, you don't let anything stop you from doing it. You don't let that you had another appointment here, you had something else here to do, so and so and so. I said, I'm going to read live to these people. If it's only me on the call, I'm going to be reading this book live. And when we start a book, we're going to read it from cover to cover. And if it's only me, I'm going to be on that call every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning reading. So I stuck with that. People started to come more and more and more. I've got great people that came to become masterminds on the call. It's been a struggle building this, not brand new. It's been around 5 years now. The numbers are still not where I want it to go, but we've done so much. Meeting Jimmy Davies and podcasting and being on 881thetruth.com with our podcasts and on Patreon and on the Every Black Entrepreneurs podcast. Just the things that we have done in the community, working with the seniors in our community, live readings at the public library and live public events, vision board classes, all these things that we have done so far, all came out of that, starting with that call in the morning. And Wednesday nights, our Wednesday night forum, the Open Mind, which we'll have tonight at 8 o'clock. And our guest speaker is going to be Betty Clausen, one of my sisters in Dudley Products. She's going to be our guest speaker tonight. Mr. Dudley has been a guest speaker. Ursula Dudley has been a guest speaker. We've had Senator here in New York as our best speaker. We've had numerous people from the Every Black organization that have been guest speakers, business people, everyone from every type of genre we have them on there. They've got a message that's inspirational. If they're doing something to follow their dream, doesn't matter what their work is. If they've stepped out and followed their dream, followed their passion in their heart, we want them to speak, to encourage others to do the same. So my wife, Doris Anderson, is with me, just with me 100% in this operation. Jimmy Davies is behind me and members of the Every Black organization. And so many are just here that we've called on people in the music industry, people from the legal profession, everyone. Got a young lady who's teaching us about stock investing and everything. It's just wonderful what goes on as a result of this reading network. The Motivation Readers Mastermind Network, every Tuesday through Saturday, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You want a telephone number? Do you want that?
Yes.
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 Right now, we're not on the Zoom format. Right now, we're just on the free conference call format and only on the audio at the moment. That's going to be changing soon. But the number is any Tuesday through Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 513-386-0000. And the access code is 316-364# or 316-364#. And that's
Okay.
it.
All right. That is awesome, awesome, awesome. Again, we appreciate you so much. You have so much energy, and that energy is just spewing out.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Beverly. Thank you so much. Thank you all.